Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, August 8th, 2025. We got a ton of good stuff coming up for you this week. We're going to have, I think, a short-ish show because there's so much to go over when it comes to all the earnings reports that have come out, and that stuff, that's really going to be a subscriber thing. So if you have not subscribed, or if you'd like to use your free entrance to check out the stories, you can go to Funeral Service Insider at Kates-Boylston. There will be a link in the show notes, and you can subscribe to the newsletter, or you can just read the show. But we'll get into it in a second after these words from our friends at Starmark.
Funeral service is more than a profession. It's a calling. Starmark understands the care, dignity, and efficiency you need to provide for the families you serve. That's why we specialize in sensible product solutions designed to meet your needs. If you're looking for sustainable, economical, and efficient container and casket solutions, Starmark is here to support you. Because presentation means everything, you deserve a partner you can trust. Starmark, the cremation solutions leader. Visit starmarkcp.com today and discover the difference.
Now, in a recent Funeral Service Insider newsletter, we reported on the Service Corporation International earnings. And I wanted to kind of follow up on it because it was pretty cool. And I've reached out to SCI for comment, and hopefully we'll have something for you in the next week or so about it. But one of the things that they brought out in their earnings call was kind of not a new approach, but maybe reinforcing or reminding people what their approach to acquisition is going to be going forward. They got a nice tax break, and they improve their cash flows in some other ways, which again, you can read as a feature on Funeral Service Insider, the newsletter. But when asked about, the M&A in the coming months and years, one of the things that Eric Tansberger talked about was the difference between building and buying. And SCI, I guess, finds itself in the unique position where if it's going to have to, or choose to, I guess, make, event centers and things like this, then it's going to need to do it by building new places. Sometimes is what he said is it's just easier and less expensive to build a new place than it is to take over and renovate an old place. And so some of their M&A is not going to be M or A. It's going to be acquisition of property and building. And we hung up from that phone, and I checked my email where I get all my Google alerts, and Lindsay Funeral Homes in Harrisonburg, Virginia had just made an announcement that they will find another way to stay open. The funeral home is being displaced by an apartment building complex called The Link. And at first everyone was excited about having this new complex, and now they're worried because the funeral home's going away. Now, this is where it gets odd because it looks like the building might be leased, which is something that, we've talked about in the past. The owner of the building isn't listed as Service Corporation International, and that's one of the things that we're working on sorting out. But the company, which was Dignity Memorial, put out a statement saying that they wouldn't be closing, but rather that they would be moving and building a new event center. And so this is practice in place while planning is in place. And it was just a kind of a neat intersection of news stories. So we'll look to see whether SCI continues to do more building. And now I did a story, I guess it was last year maybe, in late 2024, and it was the same thing. They had purchased a restaurant with the idea of turning the restaurant. It was easier, I guess, to turn the restaurant into a funeral home than to get a funeral home and make it an event center. And so that things are going this way has been obvious for some time, that there is so openly, because we've also talked about, what do you do when your funeral home property is worth so much more than your funeral home business? Well, maybe take the proceeds from the sale of the funeral home property and open a funeral home business that is event center focused. Maybe someplace that's not, maybe an iconic building downtown, but, maybe someplace where you can do exactly what you want and have it set up in this new way. And in the end, it might be better than doing renovations. So link to that story in the show notes. And as I said, we'll follow up with SCI on that in an upcoming edition of Funeral Service Insider. Matthews International and Carriage also announced their earnings for the quarter, and all of the earnings information is out. Links are in the show notes. I'm not going to read you numbers. Numbers are boring to write. They're boring to read, and they're boring to hear. I'd like to stay away from them when I can. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up as part of the Matthews story was just how critical memorialization is for them. It was maybe underplayed in the call, or maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of it than I ought to, but Matthews International is able to continue to fight off Tesla, and a lot of that is because it has the cash that's being provided by its memorialization segment. And one of the things that they've been doing very well is that they've been improving their margins even as sales sometimes slump. And in one of the ways they did that was they picked up the Dodge company, which we reported on back in May when they did it. But this is the first quarter that has all of the Dodge company revenue in it. And this is a company that's going to be producing a lot as part of Matthews. In this quarter alone, it earned, I believe it was $6 million, and $1 million of that $6 million went right to the bottom line. So they're expecting an improvement of $12 million this year in earnings just from the Dodge purchase alone. And that purchase was for about $57 million. So this is a purchase that's going to pay off big and quickly, and good for them. And I think a job well done. So there's plenty of other stuff about the merger and about the continued fight with Tesla. Tesla has looked to have their loss overturned. So in the contract with Matthews, they said if there's any dispute, we get to pick the arbitrator, and whatever the arbitrator says, everybody has to live with. And Matthews said yes, and Tesla's arbitrator said, this dry battery energy technology belongs to Matthews, and Tesla is not happy with that. So, it's not like it's a company that's known for just obeying the rules in any way, shape, or form. So it's continuing to sue, Matthews. It moved to California, and I don't know if we reported on it here, but I remember it being reported on at the time where, Tesla was undermining the Delaware corporate structures because it wasn't getting its way. And actually, that was a Twitter thing. God, it's a fun time to be alive. So anyway, now they're suing Matthews in California, trying to vacate the arbitration decision, which Matthews says is incredibly unlikely. But there's a link to our coverage in the show notes, and I think it's worth reading. Carriage, as I record this on Thursday, August 7th, has announced its earnings, and I'm working on the earnings story now, and we'll be interviewing Carlos Quesada, the CEO, on Friday morning, hopefully, as you're listening to this. So I'm going to kind of suspend a lot of the things that might be worth knowing about Carriage until either next week or until, for our subscribers, of course, you'll get the story on Sunday when I put out all the digital stuff. But one of the things that is really interesting is they're going big into acquisition. They've been getting a lot of heat for not buying very much, but they have cleared the debt to a point where they're very comfortable making a lot of big acquisitions. And what's really interesting is I think that they expected to have an announcement ready because we were really kind of all prepared. for a big announcement. And I mean, there was a big announcement. It absolutely destroyed in its earnings, and it expects to add between $5 million next quarter from acquisition income alone. So it has several big deals, multi-home deals that it's getting ready to announce, but was not going to be ready to announce by the time this week's FSI comes out, or by the time I finish this sentence. So you'll have to stay tuned on that for more exciting news from Carriage. Finally, we'll call it odd consolidator news, Foundation Partners has been purchased by a secret purchaser. Foundation Partners announced earlier this week that it has new ownership, but it's not saying who the new ownership is. The speculation that has been going around on the internet is that it is another kind of VC investor who has come in to kind of pluck them out of maybe some rocky water. The reason I'm even mentioning this, because normally this isn't the kind of thing that I like to talk about, is I got a really cool tip from one of you guys, from a listener, that said that they were looking into an particular investment company, and when they were checking into the investment company, that company had just put Foundation Partners on a non-accrual basis, which means that Foundation Partners was in a dangerous collection area of debt with that company. So as I was looking into this, I listened to that company's earnings call this week. But as it turned out, everything's cool, because I would expect that part of buying a company means clearing its debt. So we're going to have to wait to see if Foundation Partners has any interest in sharing any more information. But for now, Foundation Partners has a new secret owner, and maybe we'll find out who it is someday. Link in the show notes to their press release, such as it is. There is a Reddit post that I put a link to in this show notes that is from a funeral director that says, a would-be funeral director. The headline is, "I want to be a funeral director in the future, but I am transgender. Should I bother?" And the reason I wanted to share the link was the amount of support this person got was heartening, if nothing else. And I'm sure that there was plenty of trolling, but it had been maybe pushed farther down as the as the questions and answers came rolling in. But for the most part, everybody said, yes, this is a welcoming-ish kind of industry. And I think that funeral service, like anything else, is a diverse enough industry that you're still going to find people. I mean, I've had people say to me out loud, I don't hire people with tattoos. I don't hire women. So those guys are still rolling around there. But I mean, what do they got left? 10 years, 15. So increasingly people hire women and increasingly they hire people with tattoos. And I've done a couple of stories on transgender funeral directors who talk about their experience. And one of the things I've done a story on a couple who actually work for SCI and have no complaints about the way they're treated from corporate, I guess is the way to say it. So there's a link to that in the show notes. It's in the Ask the Funeral Director Reddit. And if you're not on that Reddit, it's one to, at least I keep an eye on it, and you may want to as well. In Texas Funeral Commission news now, and I guess this is going to be a regular segment, there was an attack ad that came out this week that was critical of Commissioner Kristen Tips, and it was very textbook political attack ad. I've got a link to it in the show notes. I can't encourage you enough to watch it. It's got everything you expect: grainy footage, slow motion action, and very, very, very serious narration over it. Talks about the time that Kristen Tips' funeral home under her direction, lost a case where they were accused of losing a body. That still has not ever been found. And then of a body switching, and they, presented the wrong body to the wrong family. And the upshot is the people, the PAC that ran this ad thinks that she is not a good commissioner, and it puts up the Governor Abbott's number and says, call Governor Abbott, tell them that Kristen Tips is not fit to be on the Funeral Service Commission. This is the kind of story that, you wish you had the time to really kind of dig into, but I'm going to have to just rely on everyone else's reporting for now. I don't know what we've said here and what I've posted online and what I've written in my columns. So just to bring you up to date, the Texas Funeral Service Commission fired its executive director after there were complaints about trouble with different inspection processes. And the executive director blamed the board for not giving them enough people, and the board fired the executive director for talking back to them. And then they fired the lawyers and support team who had spoken up on behalf of the expelled executive director. And among those were two lawyers who were very vocal about their dismissal and about what they saw as very inappropriate behavior. Because you have to remember, so she and the Kristen Tips and the funeral home that she runs lost two big cases about negligence. And mostly since she's gotten to the Texas Funeral Service Commission, according to these allegations, she's just been lobbying to do away with, to reduce the amount that a family can sue for if you lose their daughter, which was, that's the other. It was a child. It was a dead child that got lost in the case. Anyway, check out the video. It's worth seeing just for. I get mad easy, and I can't imagine being mad enough to put together an attack video like this. So these are some upset people who feel like Kristen Tips is doing damage to funeral service in Texas and want her to stop. So check out the video, link in the show notes. That will do me for this time. In Case You Missed It by Kates-Boylston is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo, and videoed by me, Tony Russo. Make sure you check out the YouTube page where I have done an unboxing to go with the Life Forest story that I did for American Cemetery and in Funeral Service Insider. It's a really cool story and certainly worth reading. If you have anything to say, I really would love to hear it. I appreciate the tips that I got and will continue to act upon them if you will continue to send them along. And again, I will keep your name confidential if you'd like, or if you want to say whatever you have to say into the internet, just send me a voicemail and I'd be happy to play it on the air. You can reach me at 732-746-0233, extension 709. That is 732-746-0233, extension 709, or follow a link in the show notes and you will be able to email me. And that will do it for this time. We will catch you next time.